Okay, in this video, I want to go over how the 3 keys auto scanner works. Okay, so the auto scanner is placed on this template here. Okay, so the template is called 3 keys trade scanner, and that's what this template is. And when you look into the indicators list, you'll see this scanner right here. It's called Auction Pivot Scanner Bounded Logic Static. Okay, it's a very long name here, but basically what this indicator does is it scans all of the assets in MarketsWatch, and it detects 2 of the core conditions in the first and second rules of the 3 keys trading system. Okay, and once it detects those 2 core conditions, it alerts you when they are detected. Okay, now let me go over what those 2 core conditions are. So this is a pound CAD alert. Okay, I had a pound CAD alert here. The indicator detected 2 core conditions of the first 2 rules, and the first condition is that price broke above the H1 R3 in the previous candle. Okay, so in the previous H1 candle, price broke above the H1 R3. Okay, that's the first core condition. The second core condition that the indicator detects is that the current H1 R1, which is this level here, plots above an untouched daily R level. Okay, in this case, it was the daily R2. Okay, all right, so when those conditions are met, the indicator will detect that, and you'll get an alert as it shows here. Pound CAD daily sell detected. You see how it says H1R1, and you see the price level here is 1.87252. That's this level here. Okay, let me just zoom in for you. It's this level right here, this orange level, 1.8725. H1R1, 1.8725. Okay, is above up to target 1.87133. Okay, that's this level here. Okay, that's the daily R2. Let me go ahead and put it on the 5-minute chart so you can actually see that price. Okay, it's right here, 1.8713. Okay, and it says IDX equals 2. Okay, so that is the daily R2. The reason why it says 2 here is that the indicator will count the daily R1 as level 0, and it'll count the midpoint level between daily R1 and daily R2 1, and then it counts daily R2 as 2. It counts the midpoint level between daily R2 and daily R3 as 3, and it counts daily R3 as 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So right now it's referring to this level. So this is the target level. All right? Now it's very simple. Once the indicator detects that, once the indicator detects those 2 core preliminary conditions that are found in rules 1 and 2, you simply follow the rest of the rules starting from rule 2 all the way to rule 5. Okay? And the next rule is wait for price to move up and hit that daily R2, which is the daily pivot target in question. And we want price to exhaust and hit the M15R1 and the M15R2, okay? It has to hit the R2, all right? It can't just hit the R1, it has to hit the R2 because that's the attempt at exhausting further, okay? And then from there, we just wait for a descending M15 middle pivot, okay? And we get that right here because the middle pivot is considered the average price of the previous period. So if we're seeing that the average price is actually going lower, then that means average prices are decreasing. Average prices are descending. And now value or price transactions, price action is being found below average prices that have descended. Okay? So the perception of value is a price at lower prices because value is being found at lower prices. The market is transacting at lower prices, and the market only transacts when it has found value, which is fair price. Okay? So you sell here. Okay? And then we're looking for price to then move lower to hit this preliminary target, which it did here, and come down lower and hit this target. Okay? Ideally, you want to enter the trade before it hits the preliminary target, but if it does hit it first, you can still enter it, but you might get some pullback, and then eventually it comes down to hit this target. Okay? And that's it. All right? So just to recap the process here, this break beyond the previous H1R3 is the beyond phase, where price is exhausting, right? It's accelerating and exhausting, okay? In the new current H1 period, we enter the attempt phase, where price hits the M15R2, which is an attempt to further exhaust and reach the current H1R1 target, okay? And it hits the daily R2 in the process, or the daily R pivot target. Now we're looking for price to fail to reach the H1R1, and that's called the failure phase. And the failure phase is complete when we have a descending M15 pivot, okay? Average prices are descending because the middle pivot represents the average price, right? Average prices are descending and value is being found below the average price that is descended, which means the perception of value is a price at lower prices because the market is finding value at lower prices. The market is transacting at lower prices, meaning it's finding value at lower prices, okay? So you enter a sell when price breaks below the M15 middle pivot, all right? And then we look for the drop there. So it's beyond phase, attempt, failure, and then we sell. We do that all the time, every time we get a setup. And we can get a setup on the daily. We could also get a setup on the weekly. This scans for weekly setups and daily setups, okay? And if you look at the indicator here, it's a very sophisticated scanner. You can select, you can enable the daily scans, or you can disable it if you'd like and only focus on weekly scans, or vice versa, you can just enable the weekly scans, or you can scan for both, which is what I do. I just wait for these setups to form, and the indicator will alert me when it forms, when those two preliminary conditions form, and look to take the trade, okay? So this particular setup, where price goes beyond the previous H1R3, and the current H1R1 is above an untouched daily R pivot, is the standard sell setup for daily pivots that the indicator will constantly detect. And then we're just looking for price to continue its way down. It may range a little bit here, but eventually it'll come down to the downside. Just set up the template, wait for the indicator to alert you when it detects these setups, go to that pair, take the trade when the rest of the rules are met. And that's it. Repeat the process over and over and over again. Okay? And we'll see price start to push its way down. And what this is indicating is that the market is interpreting this daily R level as a target. So attempts made to this target, subsequent attempts made to reach this target, will result in a bounce down because the market perceives this daily R level as a target. Okay? And this works on the weekly as well. I'll show you a weekly trade that I'm in, pound odd. Okay, this is a pound odd weekly buy setup that was detected here at 13:04, so that's 1:04 p.m. Okay, and then this is where that setup was detected here. You can see 10:23, 20:05. This is GMT plus 2 time. This is Eastern Standard Time. I'm in New York. Okay, so it's the same time. Okay, so we got pound odd weekly buy detected. Okay, it says H4S1, which is 2.04138, is below up to target 2.04308. Okay, so this is the H4S1, 2.04138, 2.04114 rounded up, right? That's that H4S1 level. And it's below the target weekly pivot of 2.04308. We can just zoom out here. We can see that's this level here, 2.0431, right? Basically rounded up, 2.04308, 2.0431, okay? And this is IDX 0 because it's the weekly S1, right? So for longs, 0 will be the weekly S1. The MS2, which is the midpoint pivot between weekly S1 and weekly S2, will be 1. The weekly S2 will be 2. The MS3, which is the midpoint level between weekly S2 and weekly S3, will be 3. And the weekly S3 will be 4. Okay? You can just simply look at the price levels and see where it's detected. And every time the indicator detects a long setup on the weekly pivots, you will see this scenario, okay? Price breaking below the previous H4 S3, and in the current H4 period, the weekly S target, the H4 S1, okay? And then we're looking for price to come and hit the H1 S2, but for weekly S1 or any sort of R1, S1 on the daily or the weekly, we consider that the weakest pivots. So we actually want price to come down and hit the hourly S3 for weekly S1s and the inverse for sells, okay? But I took a chance here and it hit the H1 S2 and then it hit the weekly S1, and then I wait for an elevated H1 pivot, an elevated H1 middle pivot, which is average prices moving up, and now values being found above ascending average prices. So you go long. And then price moves up, attempting to reach this target. Okay? And that's what we're looking for. Okay? So basically, weekly setups are just like the daily setups, but they're a pivot tier higher. Okay? It's basically a higher scale pivot. So you're just moving up the pivots one scale. Okay? So weekly setups are the same as the daily setups, but you're moving the pivots up a scale. Okay? And that's it. Just wait for the indicator to detect the setup. And then once you're alerted, go to the setup and follow the rest of the rules. Now, the best setups are when price has broken far below the H4S3 or the H1S3 in the case of long daily setups. Okay? So let's go back to our pound CAD trade. It's making its way here. You see that it's tempting here, but then it gets dropped down. It attempts here at this target again, but it's getting dropped down. So eventually, price will move down here and reach this target level, because we know that the perception of value is a price at lower prices. Okay? That's pretty much it. So the indicator is doing all of the work. You just simply need to follow the rest of the rules. So you no longer have to manually scan. All you have to do is let the auto scanner scan for those two core conditions of the first two rules. And then once you get alerted, go to that asset and then follow the rest of the rules, starting from rule number 2 all the way to rule number 5. Okay?